Hi, I'm Dr. Kyla, paediatric dietitian, fussy eating specialist, and mum of two. I'm the founder of the online Mealtimes memberships that help parents just like you experience a confident and guilt-free way of feeding children. I'm also a business owner, a hot cross bun lover, and my superpower is finding things that you cannot live without. In this podcast, I'm talking about feeding your family, along with a random selection of topics that tickle my fancy. Welcome to Mealtimes with Dr. Kyla. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. It's so nice to have you here, and apologies for the hiatus since our previous episodes. It's a little hit and miss at the moment, but my plan is to be much more regular. Today I'm going to talk about what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks, which is a fabulous family trip to Bali. Honestly, the most amazing time, and I'm here to answer a lot of the questions that are in my DMs. I asked on Instagram what people wanted to know, so I'm going to talk you through my experience. I want to be really clear, though, that this experience is purely mine. It has actually changed my experience of traveling with children, has changed significantly when we first took my oldest daughter to Bali when she was almost 2. Just before we had to pay for her plane ride. And when I'm looking back on the things I wrote at the time then, I have changed so much in my experience. So I really want to tell you a little bit about this time, a little bit about the previous times, the things, hot tips I think you need to know, and answer the questions that have been asked before. So starting off, why did we go to Bali? I think there are so many wonderful places in the world, so many cool places you can go. But when you have children, or when I have children, the things that I want from a holiday is something that is easy, something that is close, something that is affordable, and something where I can really switch off. When my kids were maybe almost 1 and almost 4, we went to Coral Bay in WA. We had a beautiful time there, but it was hard work. Like the packing, the thinking about the food, the transport, the naps, the how we were going to, do it all, taking our bedding, taking our, everything, getting to the grocery store. All of it was hard. And I have enough hard stuff in my life. I feel like everybody has enough hard stuff in their life. And I understand that there are lots of people who love adventures like that, and all power to you. But as a tired mum and business owner, I just want to rest. I want to go on a holiday where people bring me cocktails and I eat really delicious food. My kids have a blast. I feel really relaxed. There is no day-to-day chore stuff. And so that's why I choose Bali. For us, flying from Perth, it's 3.5 hours there. There's a range of flights, really flexible. When we get there, it's not too hard to get to your destination. The food is beyond excellent. Like, I cannot tell you how great the food was that we ate on this day, in past days. Absolutely incredible. There's lots of options of where to stay in Bali. We specifically chose Nusa Dua for this one, having stayed there last time too. So we went a year ago and stayed at the same place. And previously we've stayed in different parts of Seminyak, in Canggu, in Kuta. And to be honest, for a family holiday, I feel like Nusa Dua is hands down the winner. It is 20 minutes from the airport, even if there's traffic. It is clean and green and beautiful. It's so set up for families. It's just easy. There's a big boardwalk that runs along the beach. You can move between, hotels and areas and beaches. But to be honest, we spent almost all of our time in the hotel. And I guess I can talk about the hotel too. So we stayed at Melia Bali in Nusa Dua. I have never stayed at a hotel. Oh, actually I have. That's a lie. More than once. But honestly, going back there was a no-brainer for us. It is a beautiful old Bali kind of style hotel. One of the things I love about it is how easy it is to get to and how much is going on in the hotel, how clean it is, and how easy it is to be there for an extended period of time. Last time we were there for 5 nights. This time we were here for 9 nights, and it was an absolute dream. I know that being trapped like in a hotel for some people is, a real source of panic. For me and my family, staying in one place, not having to get in the car, not having to transport anywhere, not having to kind of move or do any of the check-in stuff again was a dream. It was my idea of heaven, just not having to coordinate all of the logistics of things. One of the things I love about Melia, and something I think you should definitely look for in a family hotel, is the pool, how many points there are to access, so how many shallow areas there are. For me, going this year, Cleo's 3, and she took a kind of ring floaty and could pretty much access all parts of the pool, within kind of arm's distance of us. But having an area where she could stand at the side of the pool and play with some of the toys that we bought her, or kind of jump in and not be too deep, was so helpful. And her being able to get in and out of the pool kind of herself, just if she wanted to go and wipe her face, or she wanted to grab a snack and then kind of walk back in while we were waiting in the pool. That was amazing. And the pool at Amelia, Elsie calls it Amelia, so now I'm confusing myself, has a really gradual sloping entrance that they can walk into. I think that's so important if you have young kids. I think you want something that has, well, the reason that I love it is there was enough sun lounges and day beds that you could have a space for your family to kind of set up camp for the day without having to fight for it. We stayed at Montego in Seminyak last year, and there were so limited sunbeds that we were kind of all trying to squeeze onto one. It meant that we were kind of more enticed to go out and do, shopping or walking or other things, when actually from this holiday, I wanted to be able to ignore all the external influences and just spend heaps of time playing in the pool, reading books. The kids were doing drawing and activities in their little activity books. We just didn't have to get up and go. And so having enough room to set up for the day was great. I love that Melia is big enough that there's lots of people watching, there's other kids in the pool, and my kids are getting to an age where they want to play with other kids, which feels really fun. There's like a lot of entertainment for them in that. It also meant that there's just enough excitement around the pool. I think having a villa definitely suits some families, you've got it all to yourself. But actually, I wanted a lot of family time, but broken up by the entertainment of others, by, activities in the pool. Every morning at the Amelia, they would do a stretching session and then an aqua aerobics session, and I really liked being part of that. The kids liked being part of that. There was just enough fun. I have fond memories of staying at the Dynasty as a kid myself, and just the activities like the, volleyball and the tug of war across the pool and the kids' games. Those things I think were so much more fun than a villa for us. There's a really beautiful kids club at Melia. My kids are not kids that will happily go and do activities without us. So kids club has been quite tricky for us in the past. It hasn't really had the benefit. But what I love about Melia is that they do kind of scheduled activities in the day that you can take your kids to and they can be part of. And you can kind of, back away, like you can be hands off, or you can be part of it with them. So, I've done some of the making Balinese offerings with the kids in the kids club of something to do, but not necessarily somewhere I could leave them. There's stuff in there like a trampoline and soccer goals and a basketball ring, and so they could kind of play with those with or without us. There was no point where we actually just left them in there, mostly because of my kids' personalities. But we did have a nanny, which I'll talk about later in the afternoon, and she could confidently take the kids into the kids club and use the facilities, because there's actually lots of cool toys, cool setups, cool arts and craft activities that they could do. And so having her there with them was a really great way for them to kind of have the kids club experience without necessarily being signed into kids club. I also loved Melia because there is great food. Like, there was excellent restaurants. The quality of the food and the drink, I think, has improved since last year again, and I loved it last year. So we ate, beautiful Japanese sashimi and, Wagyu beef steak at one of the restaurants. The kids loved the chocolate fountain at the buffet. We had beautiful Spanish tapas style at one of the other restaurants. The buffet breakfast, fab pastries, eggs, omelets to order, all the kind of typical stuff you would expect from a Bali buffet, but I feel like with lots of extras. Really enjoyed the food. We did the all-inclusive package. at Melia. We got it on Luxury Escapes, and there's a significant discount. And I did the same thing last year. We booked through Tripadeal to get the all-inclusive at a much lower price than what's advertised on the website. I cannot recommend all-inclusive more highly. It is the most fabulous experience of just not making decisions, not caring about what your kids order, who wants a drink, whether you need more water or not, whether you want a fresh coconut or not. You literally just like, yes, please, that's exactly what I want. And you know what? If my kids didn't eat their, $30 buffet, I do not care because it's all included. If we, drinking the Coke out of the minibar feels like such a luxurious experience because I would never get something out of the minibar normally, in terms of the cost, and it's like a thing that you never really did as a kid. Well, in my family, we never really did. And so to have all inclusive access to the minibar, to all the food, to all the drinks, to all the alcohol, cocktails, obviously that's just for the parents, was just a game changer. And we went with friends, and when I was explaining it to them, I said, it's probably not that you will be in front from a monetary perspective. Like, I don't know that you necessarily save money, but the mental load that you save of just not caring about who orders what and, when they want it. If you want an ice cream from the ice cream van, absolutely go for it. I do not mind how much it costs because it doesn't cost me anything once I'm there. So having that experience was fabulous. I know that some of the hotels offer like a version of all inclusive where like at dinner it's all included, or in a particular time frame it's all included. I can see like that would also be okay, but having it completely included was honestly the best experience. I just loved that I was not worried about a single thing. Having said that, Melia is closing in October. So apparently they're going to close for a year and they're redoing the hotel. We could not get a straight answer from staff about what that revamp was going to be. It sounds like they're knocking down the entire buildings. I really hope they save, the beautiful grounds and just the vibe of the hotel. But they couldn't tell us, necessarily how long it was going to be. They're talking about a year, but I don't know, if you go by any construction anywhere in the world, I'm guessing that's an underestimation. So from October this year, there is no more availability. So I am also on the lookout for something else. If you have stayed somewhere that sounds like what I've just said, I want to hear from you. But if you can get there before October, I would highly, highly recommend the experience. The thing I want to talk about with any kind of travel, just really quickly, is that I think it's so important to have really adjusted expectations, I guess, for what the trip will look like. And this is something I feel like I've gotten much better at over the years. So when we first went, we just had one child. She was almost 2, and it was really hard work. Like, I enjoyed being in Bali with her, but it was not relaxing. I really wanted it to be like when my husband and I had gone to Bali and eaten at beautiful restaurants and gone to, beautiful bars and had lovely cocktails. And like, we did some of those things, but it was hard work, and she cried a lot and she didn't sleep. She was up at 5 every morning. She wasn't even 2 and she would not nap there. It was all just hard work, and we still had a great time. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like over the years, obviously we had the hiatus with COVID. It was our first time going back last year, and I adjusted my expectations again about what it would look like. It didn't really matter about sleeping and how that was. It was okay to roll with it. We didn't always have to eat out and do all the fun things. And kind of my idea of a family holiday has definitely come more in line with what my family actually likes. This year, I feel like we did it again in terms of we were, really aware of what our kids like and don't like, what we like and don't like, what's important to all of us. And I feel like we had an even better experience this year. It helped that they're a bit older and they slept better, and, we were able to kind of have downtime, and Cleo didn't need to have a sleep every day. She had a couple, just especially on days where we had really big days. But I was less caught up in all the little bits of caring for children. So I think that the vibe is it gets easier as they get older. But I do think if you can adjust your expectations, like knowing that when you go on holidays, the thing that your child naturally finds hard at home is probably going to get harder is helpful to remember. And for Elsie, that was definitely sleep. Like as a 1-year-old, her sleep was really hard. And so it's no surprise that in a new location, in a new cot, with slightly kind of stressy parents, that thing got harder. And instead of kind of just rolling with what it was and trusting that she would be tired and that would be fine, I got quite caught up in trying to get her to sleep. And that was not fun. For Clee, I think sleep is a trigger for me anyway, so I'm aware of that. For Clee, it's probably more like the ferocious meltdown-y kind of stuff. And there were periods where she was, wailing in the buffet because they'd run out of baby bananas. But I also just rolled with that. Like we took her out of there, we could go back to our room if we wanted, or we could just have a quiet moment. And I was less trying to imagine this picture perfect holiday where everyone loved it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm triggered by my kids being on a tropical island in an all-exclusive 5-star hotel and whinging about, their crepe being not right. I find that a little frustrating and I'm definitely triggered by that. But I also I feel like this time around, I was much more aware that like not everybody has to be fully grateful all the time. And there is still going to be normal behavioral stuff and normal, dysregulation, and everyone's going to be a little bit tired and overwhelmed at times. And that is fine. It does not have to be perfect. And honestly, this year, I really feel like I found that comfort level of like, it's okay. Actually, none of this stuff matters. It's never going to be perfect. And everyone is still having a good time, even if the vibe is tricky at the start. So just remember, kids are definitely still trying to cope and stay safe in a world that they don't know if they haven't been there before or haven't been there for a long time. So it is really normal for things to go backwards at times, and it will pick back up at home, whatever it is that's the challenge for you and your family. So this year when my kids were 3 and 6, we took for them really little. I took clothes and a few toys and games this time. When it was just Elsie and she was kind of more of a young toddler, I took a lot more stuff. I took like my own baked beans and wheat bix and things like that. I took my own cutlery and bowls. I don't know if it's me with 2 children or just me as a more anxious parent before, but this time I took pretty much nothing for the kids. They ate at the restaurants. There's a really great range of kids' food. I'll talk more about the food and kids' food as we go on, but for me, there was very little that we took this time. In terms of the flights, I also feel like we've reached an age where things were much more flexible. So when we went with younger children, we got the 11 o'clock flight out of Perth, which meant that the youngest could have a sleep on the plane. And that way when we got there, we'd had a nap, we could get, the transport, get to the hotel. And usually we were kind of getting down to the pool or checked in kind of by about 5-ish, which was fine, but it was a little bit tricky because it was like, okay, let's have something to eat for dinner and go to bed in this place that nobody's really adjusted to yet. Flight worked really well, but I did find that first day was a bit of a waste and a bit hard to kind of find your feet. This time around, we actually took the really early flight. So we flew out at 7:10 from Perth. Now it's only a 3.5-hour flight, so absolute dream for us. But flying early was amazing. We had to get up quite early, so we had to get the kids out of bed at about 4:40. I had it so that we literally got straight into the car with them. They were kind of wearing part of their clothes on the plane, and we just put the rest on, popped them in. I took breakfast with us, so I took to the airport like a bag of mini pikelets, some butter and some jam, and then I took some chopped up apple to have at the airport, and that worked super well. We got on the plane just before 7, and we touched down in Bali just before 11. We were by the pool kind of 12:30, and we had that whole afternoon to really find our feet. That was much more doable because we didn't need to have that midday nap. Like we weren't as kind of stuck on that, and I would 100% do that again next time. I was regretting, my choices at 4:30 in the morning as I was trying to get ready, but actually having to have been ready completely the night before and literally just grabbing stuff, throwing it in the cake, you like getting your toiletries, putting it in, and that was the only thing you were adding the next morning, getting the kids straight in the car, not trying to entertain them while you kind of rush around, and not having to deal with peak hour traffic on the way to the airport was a real winner for us, and 100% would do again. We took the flight back at 2 o'clock, which meant we got in just before 6. We were home kind of by 7:30 and in bed kind of not long after that. And that worked really well for us on the way back, apart from getting stuck at the airport in Bali, but I'll talk about that as we go on. Those flights were great. I know that people in the eastern states, you really only have the evening flights to get out, which is so tricky with children. I have never found sleeping on a plane helpful for anybody. So definitely not on my recommendations, but I know that there are things that you can't always control. So on the plane, we, out of Australia, they're pretty lenient with the water in water bottles, being more than 100 mils if it's for a child. So we had the kids' water bottles. Highly recommend taking insulated water bottles that you can refill. Keeps it cold even if you're by the pool. And they're pretty relaxed with food for kids. So this time I took some frozen yogurt, like some literal yogurt pouches that I froze before we left. And then they defrosted on the plane, and that was a really easy one. We also, one of the questions on Instagram was, what was the best activity you took for your child on the plane? And, 10 out of 10, it was a screen. There are times where I think screens are your best friend, and on a plane ride, my kids were so happy. The key is that, and so was I actually watched a couple of episodes that I downloaded on Disney of the Kardashians, and I watched them for the first time while my children also just sat happily and watched their screens as we flew. So the holiday starts there for me. Obviously, if your kids are younger than 3, it's a lot harder to get them to pay attention to that kind of stuff. But for me at 3 and 6, I feel like holy grail we have reached. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that there's often no internet on the plane, so you have to have downloaded something. I think the apps, we flew AirAsia, there was nothing in terms of online entertainment. So if you have Disney or Netflix or Stan or any of those, you can download the shows. Make sure you download enough of the ones, and then when you start downloading them, make sure that you check that they've downloaded, because unfortunately we did get on the plane and realize that we only had 2 Gabby and the Dollhouse episodes available for watching, so we had to do a bit of negotiation there. But you can download whole movies onto your we use a spare phone, like an old one, for them to watch on the plane, and that worked super, super well. You can also watch those downloads if you ever do movie time at the hotel, in the rooms, because you can't watch ABC Kids or anything like that in Bali. So it is tricky if you haven't downloaded anything prior. In terms of activities, I did pack a few on the plane, and to be honest, none of them trumped the screen, so I wasn't too fast. The things that I have used for younger kids, though, are the water painting sheets. You can get them from Kmart, where you just have it comes with a little pen. I find the pen too hard to use, but you can literally just pack a paintbrush, and they can dip a tiny bit, the paintbrush, into a little bit of water, whether it's in a cup or whatever, and do the painting, whether the painting is revealed when they're using it. I would highly recommend taking snacks on the plane. You can pre-order. I'm only talking an experience from AirAsia, and the food was not something that my kids wanted to eat. I ordered them last time, the club sandwich and the Hawaiian wrap, and I wouldn't have eaten them. And they both looked at me like I was bonkers when I offered it to them. So I would pre-pack your food. We took sandwiches, just kind of shelf-stable, like Vegemite or peanut butter kind of sandwiches. I had the yogurts. I had a selection of dried cereals, some kind of clip pancakey stuff, some popcorn for Elsie, just little bits and pieces that they could kind of keep nibbling on over the time. In terms of other activities, I can talk about it here. Previously I've taken just like a little spice shaker that has those little holes in the top and toothpicks, and that's been a game that they've kind of played at the tables, trying to put the toothpicks in for little younger kids. As I've gotten older, I've used the Born Busy or the Hey Doodle reusable drawing pads, so kind of putting them in a pouch with those whiteboard markers, and they just kind of can draw on that. We took a big 100 unicorn activities book this time around, and that was a real winner. We used that not on the not on the plane, but we used that at the resort, kind of just sitting on the daybed. Really fun. We actually took a travel diary, which is by a company called My Big Adventure. We took the Bali book, which was suggested to me by a friend, and I was kind of like, oh, yeah, I could do. But actually, both my kids loved this book. There was activities in it. We chose the 3 to 6-year-old one. There was a lot of information about Bali as a place, the things that they do, words that you use. There's an option to kind of write a diary in the back, plus activities for doing on a sun lounge or at lunch or whatever it is. I really loved having had that. At the airport, the things that you kind of want to be aware of when you're traveling to Bali, what works for us was the only online form we did before we flew was the customs form, which your airline will forward to you. I just waited for that so that I knew I was getting the exact link and not kind of some scam link. And basically, instead of filling out the form that you're not bringing in, more than $1 million and you're not bringing in, illicit substances, it's just that form, and you do it online. When you've clicked it online and you've added all your passengers, written how many bags and where you're staying, then it generates a QR code for you, and you literally just have to show that QR code when you leave Bali airport. And so that's something that you want to do ahead of time. You can do it at Perth airport or your local airport if you want to. You just have to have Wi-Fi available to do it. So ideally don't do it at Bali because it just holds up your process. When you land in Bali, you do have to go through immigration as normal. There are options to prepay the immigration or the visa, I guess, which is $50 Australian, pretty much, per person. We did not prepay because the process is actually quite straightforward in terms of just handing over your money. You can pay in Australian dollars, you can pay in rupiah, you can pay with a credit card. I was discouraged from paying with my travel card this time because she would have to process it 4 times per, one per visa. So I ended up paying in cash, and it was absolutely fine. And then you go through kind of immigration. There is a line for families. I don't know if that was any faster than the other lines, but it felt like we were in a special line. I wouldn't bother doing any of that stuff ahead of time. It's all very straightforward at the airport as to what you do. One of the things that as I have gotten older and prefer a calmer start to my holiday, I have booked transfers. Lots of the hotels include a transfer. And honestly, having somebody standing there with your name on a sign and taking you to a car is a really enjoyable experience, as opposed to trying to find the taxi counter or negotiating with somebody there or trying to be ripped off. I mean, you're obviously not trying to be ripped off, but there's a lot of people hovering. And so knowing that you can just with your children take a sign, that they're going to be able to fit your luggage in, that there's an air-conditioned van waiting for you, there's somebody that you trust driving it, that is something money can't buy. So I would highly recommend choosing the transfer option if you can. There's quite a weaving, you've got to weave your way through duty free, around past the kind of taxi tourist desk, and then back around out the front to get out of the Bali airport. And again, that little man with the sign, absolute game changer. We did not organise car seats, mainly because we did have a car seat the first time around when we just had one child, and it was so different to the one at home that she wouldn't sit in it. So I ended up having her on my lap, and I paid the fee for the car seat. So there was that. Also, the traffic in Bali is quite different. It's pretty slow, and there's just heaps of people, and they're all just much more generous with space than they are in Australia. So everybody's kind of ready for everyone else to cut them off. And so there's no kind of hard braking or no fast-paced travel. Obviously, I can't guarantee you will be safe, but I felt comfortable in my 6-year-old just having the seatbelt on and my 3-year-old sitting on my lap. And that was handy because she had a bit of a little, rest while she was sitting with me. There are plenty of companies that hire out car seats if that's something that you would feel more comfortable with. But for us, we chose not to at the time. And it just meant we booked our own car just from a driver who'd given us their details as part of the transfers on the way in. We booked them somewhere between $25 and $30 to take you back to the airport on the way out. So definitely wasn't something I worried about. In terms of Bali airport on the way out, we had a very traumatic experience with, we got through kind of checking in, we got through the personal security part, and then immigration we queued, I reckon 45 minutes, an hour, and we were not even a quarter of the way through the line. And the person in front of us actually said, like, if you don't get to the front in the next 5 minutes, you will miss your flight. So you need to be pushing in. And as a chronic people pleaser, the idea of jumping a line, I still feel ill about that experience yesterday, but we had to push through. People were yelling at us. We 100% would have missed our flight if we did not go to the front. Also, my 6-year-old needed to do a wee really badly. We could not have waited in that line any longer. I have since heard varying stories. Some people getting really stuck in that immigration line. Other people who got to the airport half an hour before us had been at the gate for an hour and a half. So I do not understand how we got stuck. I do think when we were in the line, there's 3 kind of different lines in immigration. Each of them are lines with a couple of counters, and the line we were in was definitely the biggest and only had 2 people operating the immigration kind of stamping. So our line was moving very, very slowly. I've since heard that if you kind of push to the left of the immigration, as you're looking at the immigration desks, you go to the left, there is a concession and family line, which I was unaware of, but apparently they actually have staff there helping you through. There were no staff for us to say, we're about to miss our flight. We have been here for 2 hours already. How do we get through? And so that was tough. We were belting to our gate. We were running. I was carrying my 3-year-old. We were dragging the suit. It was just mental, and I do not recommend that. So I, next time, personally, would give myself at least 3 hours to get from the start of the airport to the gate. I have spoken to people who have gone from drop-off to the gate in 25 minutes and then obviously had 2.5 hours to kill, but Revolver have a restaurant there now, the coffee place. There are some actually delicious, there's a Korean fried chicken place that's yum. I would prefer to be wandering the airport and, sitting in a restaurant than experiencing what we experienced yesterday. So make sure you allow yourself enough time. Some of the next questions related to dengue fever. So there is, I think it's DFAT have sent out a recommendation to Australians travelling to Bali that there is an increased risk of catching dengue fever from mosquitoes. The numbers are still very small, but obviously dengue has, ongoing life impacts, particularly for pregnant people. And we did travel with a pregnant person, so she was much more stressed about it than I was. But I think the kind of standard recommendations apply. So we took an insect repellent with DEET as the active ingredient. You can confidently use insect repellent with a DEET content of kind of 10 to 30% for babies 2 months and older. So on my 3-year-old and 6-year-old, we just used the Bushman's version. I think that has 20% DEET. You can dab it on their clothes. The Australian government recommendations are that 19 to 30% DEET is ideal for tropical areas. There are differing opinions on this. I'm happy to be guided by the RCH guidelines. Some people prefer to use natural ingredients, which can be effective, but the studies are pretty consistently showing that they're not as effective as DEET as an active environment. So as always, you do you, decide what works for you and your family. I know that, if you've got a baby kind of napping early morning or kind of dusk. So kind of dawn and dusk are the key times for mosquitoes. Then you can, use an insect net for the pram. Our friends took the Parakeeto brand of kind of natural repellent that you have like a wristband, and they did that with the DEET. You can get plug-in zappers for your room. You can ask for your room to be sprayed if you want to. I mean, we used just regular insect repellent. The Bushman's one, as I said, I think that was a 20% DEET, and nobody was stung by a mosquito at all. I didn't really even see mosquitoes there. So I think like the general guidelines, take care, do what you can to minimize the risk. But we also didn't, buy anything specific other than the insect repellent. So again, choose what works for your family. Lots of questions about Bali belly, and I get it because I feel like, for decades we've been told like it is really scary to get Bali belly. You're going to get it if you drink the ice or you eat the salad that's been washed in the water. And I do think, when we first went to Bali as kids, myself, that was true. But Bali really has evolved with the times, especially in these kind of hotels. If you're staying in a hotel, they do not want you to get sick in their hotel. And so everything that they use in terms of ice, in terms of preparing food for guests in the hotel, is using filtered water. So the only thing that we were really conscious about was not drinking from the tap, not washing our teeth, brushing our teeth in water from the tap, and just drinking bottled water. The only thing that I said to my kids was, the water from the tap is not safe for us to drink. Use the water in the bottle. I made sure that when we were cleaning our teeth, we had 2 glasses with the bottled water already in it that they could dip and rinse with, so there wasn't kind of even any temptation to turn on the tap. The ice in the hotels and, in a reputable restaurant is absolutely fine. If we go back to the kids, I asked them to close your mouth while I rinse your hair. We didn't have kind of deep baths where they were submerging themselves. So even for younger kids, I think shallow baths are okay. We didn't have flannels that they were going to put in their mouth, so that probably helped as well. But realistically, I don't know that there's much you can do to protect yourself other than try not to drink any of the water or put it in your mouth. The pool water is so treated with chlorine, to make it safe. Obviously, also with lots of kids swimming in the pool, they have to do that. But it wasn't a problem for us, hasn't been in the past. Obviously, I don't want to jinx myself, but I think you can only, take appropriate precautions. And if you get sick, you got unlucky from some reason. So that's really all we did about Bali Belly. We did not avoid any particular foods. Obviously, we were eating mainly in the hotel because it was all inclusive. And again, if they're serving that to you, they don't want you to get sick either. So that the quality of the food is really great. The filtered water is absolutely fine. I do know one of my friends got sick at the airport. They checked into one of the kind of guest lounges at the airport, and they drank the water from the kind of pretty display that was filled with fruit and and that water made them sick. But that's the only kind of time I've heard about that happening. So again, choose what works for you and your family. In terms of food, as I said, I took kind of some food on the plane with us. Would highly recommend taking a snack box, like a little Tupperware container that you can refill on the last day to take back on the plane, because the options are quite limited when you are flying. The size of the kind of B-box snack box is a really good size, and even a couple of little Ziploc-y bags, the reusable ones, to put something like, we took on the way home, I took apples from the buffet, a couple of the baby bananas. You can, as long as you eat them on the plane or you dispose of them before you get back into Australia, it's fine to take them on the plane. I took a couple of handfuls, scoops. I didn't use my hand at the buffet, but some of the dry cereal that they had there, a couple of the muffins, a couple of croissants, a couple of bits and pieces that would last the journey back. And having a snack box, I actually didn't take it this time, but would have been really helpful if I did. Everything else we ate at the hotel. And really my philosophy on food, I think when you're traveling at all, and I mean, unless you're traveling for 6 months, then I think maybe you need to be more aware. But my philosophy on food is that anything goes on a holiday. I do not need to spend time thinking about it. I want my kids to learn that there are times when you just can eat anything that's available to you and it really doesn't matter. And I honestly feel like they had their fill of all of they pretty much lived on pancakes, baby bananas, crepes, pizza. The kids' menu was actually quite extensive at Melia. So we had a selection of bolognese pasta, tomato pasta, meatballs, fish and chips, nuggets, schnitzel, tacos. What else was there that we ate really regularly? Burgers, and quite like nice ones, actually. I don't think you necessarily need a kids menu. I absolutely would let them choose off the regular menu, but I do think when they're on holiday, some kids are very adventurous out of their normal routine. My children are not. They loved being able to order tomato pasta, and I am totally fine that they ate that pretty much every single day. Some variations in there. I would suggest, as a pediatric dietitian, that what your kids eat on a 2-week holiday is totally irrelevant. If they pretty much subsist on, ice cream from the ice cream cart, some plain pasta, maybe a burger or two, they will be absolutely fine. I really do not think you need to get hung up on what they choose from the buffet. And I do think it probably brings up a lot for us. I heard a lot of parents at the buffet kind of eat your real food first. No, you can't have that. And to be honest, that's just not something I'm interested in doing while I'm on holidays. I do not want to be negotiating about anything. So free for all for me. And I actually think going back today, my kids are back at school and daycare today. They'll actually be quite happy to get back into a bit of normalcy, a bit of a typical sandwich, fruit and veg in the lunchbox, a variety of kind of Australian snacks. I think that's a nice kind of thing to come back to when you have had a few weeks of eating whatever you want. And I think as adults, like, I want to have as many cocktails as I want, or as many canapes as I like, or as much from the restaurant as I want. And I really want them to be relaxed about food and not feel me hovering over them, trying to get them to make healthy choices, because I honestly don't think it matters. It only adds an angst in this situation. So my philosophy is it's pretty much a free-for-all. I don't even really stick to kind of meal times or routines. If they're hungry and they want to order something, then whatever, go for it. The more chips, the better. If you have a really restricted child in terms of eating, you can absolutely bring your own. Same if you have a young baby, if you want to bring your own pouches or whatever. Lots of the hotels do have a baby menu where you can choose things, and there are some safe foods, things like scrambled eggs for babies, that kind of stuff. But if you would prefer to bring your own and you have the case space, you absolutely could do that. I know that for lots of really, kids who find eating really tricky, it is so, so hard to eat in a different country. So, for example, lots of children will be able to tell the difference between, the bread that they have in Australia versus in Bali. It has a different taste. So, a toasted sandwich here versus there is very different for kids who do find eating really tricky. Even a spaghetti and bolognese is going to be very different to your own home cooked version. The nuggets are not the specific nuggets that we have here. And my now 6-year-old would have found that really challenging as a 3-year-old. And so I probably would have bought more of my own food then. My current 3-year-old is like a nugget to her, and she is fine. I was quite happy for them to choose what they wanted, but I was confident that there was a range of foods they could eat. I did notice towards the end of the trip they did get more adventurous. So my 6-year-old ordered the mahi fish, which she definitely would not have done at the start of the holiday. My 3-year-old was more open to trying things that were on our plate, but I just don't think of holidays as a time where I need to kind of make a big deal. I mean, not that I ever make a big deal out of it. Sometimes they can surprise you, and I think it's nice to be open to that. But I think if you know that your child is brand specific, they're aware of the differences in texture and taste, they're bothered by that at home, they are probably also going to be bothered by that in a different country where it also smells different and it's got different noises and different sensations, and they're dealing with a lot on their sensory system, then I think it can be helpful to have your own food if you want to. In terms of allergies, a lot of the reputable restaurants now are very capable at dealing with allergies, with celiac disease. A lot of the allergens are listed on the menus. If you have a very difficult combination of allergies, then I'm guessing that you'll also be quite versed in explaining that to restaurants or eating out here. And again, I think it's up to you as to how confident you feel in terms of asking for those things. I have seen people kind of translate, the list of allergies, list of allergens into the language that they're traveling to the country, so that it's really easy for the chef to be able to say, like, yes, these things are free of those. But I do think that has evolved to a point where you can be fairly confident in what's being served at restaurants. Obviously, you can't guarantee anything. You can't guarantee anything anywhere. And so, kind of having your appropriate management plan with you is okay. But I do think it is doable. Again, though, I am saying that as a parent of children who do not have severe allergies. So, totally your choice. In terms of snacks, there were lots of questions about snacks. I took no snack foods this time other than what we had on the plane. We tended to order things because we had the all-inclusive. So, my kids kind of had snacks, either things like a milkshake or a crepe. Sometimes in the afternoon, we would have the ice cream from the ice cream cart, but we seem to have kind of 3 bigger meals and just kind of a nibble on something as opposed to kind of really regular eating opportunities. And that might have just been because we were super busy and there was lots going on. They did have a lot of juice while we were there, like mixing together the tropical juices to make their own concoctions was a highlight of their lives. So that probably filled them up. We did order a few smoothies between meals and snacks, a plate of hot chips, that kind of thing. But we didn't buy any snacks. The snack game really in Bali is not like it is in Australia. So if your kids definitely need, like a muesli bar style or a messy monkeys or something like that, there are not similar things available. They are not comparable. So I know that snacks can be a really helpful thing to get you through, particularly if you do have to pay for something. You may as well kind of pack a few of those snacky foods to get you through. Okay, I think I might talk about the nanny and then I think I'll call it a day for this episode. I've actually got a heap of stuff I still want to talk about, things like probiotics, so I'll get to them in a minute. We had a nanny for this trip, so we were there for 9 nights. We didn't have her on the first night when we got there just because we wanted to acclimatise, we wanted to eat with the kids and then kind of go to bed early, but we did have her for 8 nights. We had her from about 3 o'clock till about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. She is somebody that we've used before, and I think the best recommendation I can give you is to ask people who have used a nanny in Bali for their recommendation, because that family will know if they loved the nanny or if they didn't, and that is the best advice you can get. So this person, her name was Ayu. She was recommended to us by friends back when we went the first time around, and when Elsie went when she was only 1, she would hardly go to our friends, let alone a completely new person. And so pretty much for the whole 7 days we were there the first time, she didn't even look Ayu in the eye. And the only thing that Ayu was really able to do was sit in the room with her once she was asleep. And it took me ages to get her to sleep, and it was very stressful. And looking back on it now, I actually think you would have handled that way better than me at the time, but that's what I was comfortable with. So what we did was she literally was just there to help us be able to go out for dinner once we got the baby asleep in the room, and she would sit with her and she would WhatsApp me if there was a problem and I could come back to the room. I know lots of friends have put air tags in the sleeping bags and things like that so that if your baby was ever moved, you would know about it. I met and trusted Ayu pretty early on. I had recommendations from friends, so I felt comfortable. There are a number of agencies you can use, and they, do a lot of vetting process. Again, it's a risk up to you. The best thing, I think, as our kids have got older, is that when we've had a nanny, we are still very much hands-on with the kids. So I'm still the one deciding, when we're going to eat. We're still the ones doing bath and bed and teeth and that, those kind of things, that there's a certain way your kids like it. I still want to be with my kids at that time. But what I love about having a nanny is she can go and do the bracelet making class with them that I don't want to do, that she will play a game of wake up crocodile in the pool for 45 minutes that I only have the patience to play for 5 minutes. And my kids are very cautious about new people. They don't warm to new people well. But the lady that we had was so gentle and respectful and quietly confident that this time around they greeted her, the two of them, in the lobby. I mean, Cleo took a little while, but Elsie was so excited to see her again. They made balloon animals together. She made flowers. They did drawing and colouring and just all those things that I like to do for a short period of time, but I certainly don't want to spend, 5 hours doing that. And so she could take them to watch the movie at Kids Club, and I would know that they were still supervised by someone very specific to me, but I didn't have to sit through Spider-Man, for example. I don't even know why they sat through Spider-Man in the movie, but anyway. So having somebody just there for an additional pair of hands was amazing. Because we went this time with another family, there were 4 children, and so the rate was $15 an hour if there were 4 children. Usually it's kind of somewhere between $8 and $10 an hour, but obviously 4 children is hard. I wouldn't have given her 4 children if there was a baby or, our 4 get along really well and were kind of able to do most of the same things. And it meant that in the afternoon we would have an hour, maybe even sometimes 2 hours in the adults only pool while they went and did the kid things in the kids club or in the pool. And obviously apart from Cleo, all of them could swim, so she was able to manage that so competently. The first night that we had her, we tried reading a story and singing and having music and trying to get our kids to sleep, and it took an hour. And then the next night we started it again, and as the parents, and kind of we wanted to get them to sleep, then go to the restaurant, and it took forever. And I think it must have been the third night, but our nanny Ayu said to us, could I just have a go, reading the story and getting them to bed? And seriously, she got them asleep in 15 minutes. And the next day, they're all laughing about the voices she did in the book and what she did with this. So I was just, one, blown away by her competency, because with 2 adults, we could not manage that, who were their actual parents, but also just how much more relaxed I felt about that than I did early on. There is no way I could have trusted her to be part of our routine, but she was a beautiful, respectful, never kind of stepped in the way, but always kind of helping, grab the nighttime nappy out if we needed it, and laying the towels out so the girls could get out of the bath or whatever it was. And that was a really nice balance. I feel like they had some really nice time with her, really enjoyable. They also had heaps of nice, enjoyable time with us during the day. We also got to recharge as adults, and not have to be parenting the whole time and not have to kind of play all the games the whole time. It just worked really, really well. And sometimes even just having a nanny while the baby naps, in the room, or while your toddler's having a bit of downtime, is so nice that you can just pop out and do something without always having to be available. So that was mine. I'm more than happy to share my recommendation for the nanny if you want to get in touch with me. Obviously, I'm not going to put her WhatsApp number out just into the world, but if you're interested in finding her, I can send that on. So in the next episode, I might discuss all of my favorite little recommendations, the little things that have worked for us in terms of nappies, sleeping, prams, probiotics, that kind of stuff, as well as all the activities and the things that I really think you should pack. So that's it for me for this episode. I look forward to chatting to you more next week, and hopefully by then I will have adjusted to the cold, because coming back from Bali is a real shock to the system. When it was 4 degrees this morning in Perth, I can't even imagine what it's like in other parts of Australia. Thanks for being here. Talk to you next week. Bye. A huge thanks for tuning in and listening to my podcast. This is all brand new for me, so I'd love to hear your feedback. Give me a review or send me a DM. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And above all, I'd really love you to hit that subscribe button to keep listening. Thanks.